The History of Man in 17 Seconds. Ishmael said, "There's only one place to begin with any pupil, Julie, and that place is where the pupil is." Do you see what I mean? I think so. For the most part, the only way I can know where you are is if you tell me. And that's what you must do now. I need you to tell me what you know of human history. I groaned, and Ishmael asked me why. History is not my favorite subject, I told him. I can understand that, he said, knowing how the teachers in your schools are forced to teach it. But I'm not asking you to recite what you've learned or failed to learn in school. Even if you'd never spent a single day in school, you would have a general impression of what's happened here, just by having your eyes and ears open in the culture for 12 years. Even someone who has done nothing but read the Sunday funnies has that. Okay, I said, and then made a connection. Is this Mother Culture's version of human history? Is that what you're asking for? Ishmael nodded. That's what I'm asking for. I need to know how much of it you've taken in. Even more to the point, you need to know how much of it you've taken in. I see, I told him, and started to work on it. After about 3 minutes, he started to squirm, which in his size made an impressive sight. I gave him an inquiring look. Keep it simple, Julie. This isn't a term paper on which you're going to be graded. Just give me the general outline that everyone understands. I don't want 1,000 words or even 500. 50 words will do it. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to work in the pyramids in World War II. Let's begin with the framework. Once we have that, we can work in anything we please. All right. Humans appeared here about, 5 million years ago? 3 million is a widely accepted estimate. Okay, 3 million. Humans appeared about 3 million years ago. They were scavengers. Is that the right word? They may well have been scavengers originally, but I think the word you're looking for is foragers. Yeah, that's right. They were foragers, nomads. They lived off the land, like Native Americans used to do. Good. Go on. Well, they went on living off the land right up to about 10,000 years ago. Then, for some reason, they gave up the nomadic life and started farming. Is that right? 10,000 years?
No.
Ishmael nodded. New findings might push it back, but until they do, 10,000 is the general accepted figure. Okay, so they settled down and started farming, and that was basically the beginning of civilization. All that stuff. Cities, nations, wars, steamboats, bicycles, rockets to the moon, atomic bombs, nerve gas, and so on. Excellent, the gorilla said. Alan had to perform the same feat for me, but it took him almost 2 hours. Really? Why? Partly because he's male and must show off a bit, and partly because he's been listening to the voice of Mother Culture for so long that he thinks it's his own voice. He has a hard time distinguishing one from the other. I see, I said, trying not to sound smug. In any event, the basic lie is now in place. Around 10,000 years ago, people gave up the foraging life and settled down to become farmers. I looked at it for a minute, then asked him which part of it was wrong. The date is right, isn't it? He nodded. The foraging part is right too, isn't it? I mean, before people were farmers, they were foragers, right? He nodded again. Then they started farming. That's what they did, wasn't it? Yes. Then where's the lie? The lie is hidden in the only part of the statement you haven't thought about. Will you repeat it for me? Around 10,000 years ago, people gave up the foraging life and settled down to become farmers. Wow, I said. I don't even see any room in there for a lie. Nor would most people of your culture. It is, after all, your culture's version of the story. So naturally, it appears completely unexceptional to you. You'll see it, or some variation of it, repeated in all your textbooks. You'll see it repeated again and again in newspaper stories and magazine articles. If you keep your eyes open, you'll come across it in one form or another 2 or 3 times a week. You'll see it repeated routinely by historians who would certainly recognize it as a lie if they weren't just repeating it routinely. But where's the lie? The lie is in the word people, Julie. It wasn't people who did this. It was the people of your culture. One culture out of tens of thousands of cultures. The lie is that your actions are humanity's actions. The lie is that you are humanity itself. That your history is human history. The truth is that 10,000 years ago, one people gave up the foraging life and settled down to become farmers. The rest of humanity, the other 99%, went on exactly as before. I went into a coma for a minute or two. Then I said, here's the way it seems. It's like this was the next step in human evolution. Homo forager became extinct, and Homo farmer took over. Ishmael nodded. That's very perceptive, Julie. I hadn't seen that myself. It's exactly the impression one receives. But of course, it isn't true. How do you know that? First, because Homo forager did not become extinct, and is still not extinct. And second, because foragers and farmers don't belong to different species at all. They're biologically indistinguishable. The difference between them is strictly cultural. Bring a forager's baby up among farmers, and he'll be a farmer. Bring a farmer baby up among foragers, and he'll be a forager. Okay, but even so, it was like, I don't know, it was like the band struck a new tune, and everyone started dancing to it all over the world. Ishmael nodded and said, I know this is how it sounds, Julie. Your history books have reduced it to a very simple story indeed. In fact, it's an extremely dense and complex story, and one that everyone in your culture vitally needs to know. Your future doesn't depend on understanding the fall of Rome, or the rise of Napoleon, or the American Civil War, or even the World Wars. Your future does depend on understanding how you came to be the way you are. And this is the story I'm trying to reveal to you. Ishmael stopped and went glassy-eyed for about 10 minutes. Finally, he scowled and shook his head, and I asked what was wrong. I was trying to think of a way to make the story comprehensible to you in a single telling, Julie, but I don't think it can be done that way. It has to be presented in several different tellings, each telling designed to bring out a different set of themes. Does that make any sense to you? No, not much, to be honest, but I'm certainly willing to listen. Good. Here is a telling of the story based on your metaphor of the tune and the dancers. Although it may sound fanciful, it's not nearly as fanciful as the story told in your textbooks, which is about as useful, historically speaking, as the tales of Mother Goose.